I never thought silence could be louder than words. When I called my daughter Emily about her graduation, I expected excitement, maybe nervousness about the ceremony. What I got instead was a pause so heavy I could feel it pressing against my ear. Then she said it, calm as ordering coffee.
We didn't invite you, Dad. It's only for close people.
Close people. I'd raised her alone after her mother died. I'd worked double shifts so she could have dance lessons. I'd sat through every recital, every parent-teacher conference, every midnight fever, and now I wasn't close enough. The phone went dead before I could respond, and I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the refrigerator covered in her childhood drawings, wondering when exactly I'd become a stranger to my own daughter. What kind of distance grows between a father and child that makes 23 years of love suddenly not count as close? The apartment felt different after that call. I'm 71 now, and I've lived in this same two-bedroom place for 40 years. Emily grew up here. Her height marks are still penciled on the doorframe to her old room, which I've kept exactly as she left it when she moved out for college 7 years ago. The pink curtains she picked out when she was 12. The bookshelf I built with my own hands, still holding her favorite novels. After she told me I wasn't close enough for her graduation, I walked into that room and just stood there. The afternoon light came through those pink curtains the same way it always had, soft and rose-colored. But everything felt wrong. I touched the spines of her books, wondering if she even remembered they were here, wondering if she remembered me the way I was before I became whatever she thought I was now. I didn't cry right away. That's not how grief works when you're my age. You've had enough losses that your body knows how to postpone the breaking. Instead, I made myself dinner. Same as always. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, a small salad. I set one place at the table, which is what I'd been doing for years. But that night, it felt like a statement. One plate, one fork, one glass of water. One person who apparently wasn't close enough. I ate slowly, chewing each bite carefully, and I thought about all the dinners Emily and I had shared at this table. How she'd talk about her day at school, animated and laughing. When did she stop sharing? When did I become someone she needed to protect her important moments from? Before I continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing more stories that matter. The next few weeks, I tried to be normal. I went to my part-time job at the hardware store, where I've worked since retiring from construction. My coworkers asked about Emily, and I told them she was doing well. Graduating soon, very busy. I didn't mention that I wouldn't be there. Pride is a strange thing. It makes you cover for the people who hurt you. At night, I'd come home and find myself looking at old photo albums. Emily as a baby, Emily at 5, missing her front teeth, Emily at 13, awkward but still letting me hug her. Emily at 18, heading off to college, promising to call every week. She had called, for a while. Then it became every other week, then monthly, then only when she needed something. The day of her graduation, I didn't do anything special. I went to work. I helped customers find the right tools for their projects. I smiled and made small talk and pretended I wasn't thinking about the fact that my only child was walking across a stage somewhere and I wasn't there to see it. One of my coworkers, Frank, asked if I was taking the day off for Emily's ceremony. I'd forgotten I'd mentioned it weeks ago. I told him it got rescheduled. Some lie that came out so smoothly, I almost believed it myself. When I got home that evening, I looked at my phone. No messages, no photos, nothing. It was like the day hadn't happened, except I knew it had, somewhere in a world where I didn't belong. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at 11 at night. I was already in bed, reading a Western novel I'd read probably 5 times before. The number was Emily's. My heart jumped the way it always did when she called, that stupid, hopeful leap that maybe this time things would be different. I answered on the second ring. Hello? There was breathing on the other end, shaky and wet. And then her voice. Dad, I need help. Not hi. Not how are you. Not I'm sorry I cut you out of one of the most important days of my life. Just I need help. And because I'm her father, because close or not close, I'd walk through fire for her. I sat up straight and said, What's wrong? Are you hurt? She wasn't hurt, not physically, but her voice was breaking, and suddenly she was talking fast, words tumbling over each other about her boyfriend, about money, about a situation that was urgent and required me to do something right now. I listened to all of it. The boyfriend, Marcus, had apparently convinced her to co-sign on an apartment lease way above her budget. He'd promised to cover his half but had stopped paying 2 months ago and then disappeared. Now she was facing eviction. Her credit was about to be destroyed, and she needed someone to help her cover 3 months of back rent plus penalties. The total was $8,200. My entire savings account had $9,100. I'd been saving for years, putting away a little each month for emergencies or maybe a trip someday. She was crying now, really crying, saying she was sorry. She knew it was a lot, but she didn't have anyone else to ask. Her friends were all broke graduate students. I was it. I was the only person she could turn to. And here's the thing about being a parent. Even when they break your heart, you still want to fix things for them. It's wired into you, this need to protect them, to make their problems go away. I felt it rising in me, that old instinct to say yes. But then I heard her words again in my head. It's only for close people. I heard the silence after her graduation, the absence of any acknowledgement. I thought about my savings account, those $9,100 that represented years of careful living. So I took a breath, and I said something I never thought I'd say to my daughter. Emily, I think you should ask your close people first. The silence that followed had weight, had shock, had the sudden realization that actions have consequences. She made a small sound, almost a gasp, and then said, "What?" I repeated it, slower this time. "You told me your graduation was for close people. I wasn't close enough for that. So I think you should ask your close people for help with this." My voice wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was just stating a fact, drawing a line that apparently needed to be drawn. She tried to argue, said that was different, that this was an emergency, that I was her father. And I said yes, I was her father when she needed money, but I wasn't close enough when she needed guests at her graduation. She hung up on me. The phone went dead, and I sat there in my bed, holding it, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not happiness, but relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for weeks and finally let it out. I'd set a boundary. I'd respected myself enough to say that love isn't a one-way emergency fund, that you can't pick and choose when someone matters. I put the phone on my nightstand, turned off the light, and lay there in the dark. My chest felt tight, and my eyes burned, and I knew sleep wouldn't come easy. But I also knew I'd done the right thing, even if it hurt, especially because it hurt. Sometimes the right thing breaks your heart, while it heals your spine. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark listening to the buildings settle around me, those familiar creaks and groans. Every sound felt amplified, the refrigerator humming, the upstairs neighbor's footsteps. Around 3 a.m, I gave up and made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in my bathrobe, and watched the city lights through my window. My phone sat in front of me, dark and silent. Part of me kept expecting it to light up, to see Emily's name. But the phone stayed dark. When the sun finally came up, painting the sky that murky orange color it gets in the city, I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped everything important from my chest and left just the mechanics. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Then I sat in my apartment and did nothing. I just sat in my armchair, the one I'd bought when Emily was a baby so I could rock her to sleep, and I stared at the wall. The photos hung there like evidence of a life I thought I'd lived. Emily at every age, smiling, happy, loved. Me beside her, younger then, still strong enough to lift her onto my shoulders. We looked close in those pictures. We looked like people who would matter to each other forever. When exactly had the pictures started lying? Around noon, my phone finally rang. Not Emily. My sister Margaret, calling from Arizona, where she'd retired 5 years ago. We talked maybe once a month, obligatory sibling check-ins, but her voice had an edge today. "William, what did you do?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Margaret sighed. "Emily called me this morning. She's very upset. Said you refuse to help her when she's in crisis. I closed my eyes. So Emily had gone to her close people after all. Margaret barely knew Emily. Saw her maybe once every 2 years. But apparently, desperation makes you call anyone. I explained the situation, the graduation exclusion, the money request. Margaret listened, and when I finished, there was a long pause. Then she said something that surprised me. Good. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear. Good? Margaret's voice was firm. William, I love you, but you've let that girl walk on you her whole life. After Sarah died, you became both parents, and somehow that meant you never said no. Ever. Do you remember when she was 16 and wrecked your truck because she was texting while driving? You paid for all the repairs and didn't even ground her. You've been an ATM with a heartbeat. Her words stung because they were true. After Sarah died when Emily was 8, I'd been terrified of doing everything wrong. Single father, no idea how to raise a daughter alone, just drowning in grief. So I'd overcompensated. I'd said yes to everything, trying to make up for the mother she'd lost. Before I continue, you need to subscribe to Deserved Revenge because what I'm about to reveal will shock you. Hit that subscribe button now. Margaret kept talking. She's 25 years old. She's not a baby. She made a bad decision with a bad boyfriend, and now she needs to figure it out herself. You did the right thing. Don't you dare back down now. We talked for another 20 minutes, and by the end, I felt something loosening in my chest. Validation. Someone else saw what I saw. 2 days passed. Then 3. Then a week. No calls, no texts, nothing from Emily. I went back to work, fell into my routines, and tried not to think about what her silence meant. Was she okay? Had she found another solution? The not knowing was its own kind of torture. On the 8th day, I came home from work to find a letter slipped under my door. The envelope was plain white, my name written on it in Emily's handwriting. I stood in my entryway holding that envelope for a full minute before I opened it. My hands were shaking. Inside was a single page, handwritten. It started with Dad, and my heart jumped at that word. But then the rest. I can't believe you would abandon me when I needed you most. After everything you say you've done for me, you choose now to punish me for one comment I made when I was stressed. You're selfish and cruel, and I don't think I can forgive you for this. Don't contact me. I'll figure out my life without you, since that's clearly what you want. Emily. No love, no signature beyond her name, just accusation and dismissal. I sat down heavily on my couch, still holding the letter. This letter showed me exactly who Emily had become. Someone who could hurt people and then be offended when they didn't absorb it silently. Someone who saw relationships as transactional. You give me what I need, or you're selfish and cruel. The grief I felt wasn't new grief. It was old grief finally being acknowledged. I'd been losing my daughter for years. I'd just been too afraid to see it. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Sarah's funeral. I went to the box in my closet where I kept her things. The box I'd sealed up 17 years ago. I pulled it out, sat on my bedroom floor, and carefully lifted the lid. Sarah's perfume dried up now. Her favorite sweater, a stack of letters she'd written me when we were dating, and at the bottom, a journal she'd kept during Emily's first year of life. I'd forgotten about this journal. Sarah had started it as a gift for Emily, writing entries about what she was like as a baby, what she hoped for her. I opened it randomly, and my eyes fell on an entry from when Emily was 6 months old. Sarah's handwriting. Today, Emily smiled at William when he came home from work, and his whole face just lit up. He's such a good father. Sometimes I worry he loves her too much, if that's possible. Like he'd give her anything, do anything, sacrifice everything. I hope as she grows up, someone teaches her that his love isn't something to take for granted. I had to stop reading because my vision blurred. Sarah had seen it even then, that I would give everything, and she'd worried about it. I spent hours reading that journal, remembering Sarah, remembering the family we'd been before cancer took her. I'd tried so hard to keep Sarah alive in our conversations, in our traditions. But maybe in doing that, I'd made Emily into something Sarah never would have wanted. Someone who thought love was unconditional acceptance of bad behavior. Sarah had been kind, but firm. She'd had boundaries. I just taught Emily that Dad would always be there to fix things, no matter what. The next morning, I wrote my own letter. Dear Emily, I received your letter. I'm sorry you feel abandoned, but I need you to understand something. Love isn't just about showing up when someone needs money. It's about showing up for the moments that matter. You decided I wasn't close enough for your graduation, and that hurt more than I think you can understand. When you called asking for my entire savings, you weren't asking your father for help. You were asking an ATM. And I had to say no, not to punish you, but to respect myself. I hope someday you understand that. I will always love you, but I can't keep sacrificing myself to prove it. Dad. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, but didn't address it. Instead, I put it in the drawer of my nightstand. Maybe I'd send it someday. 3 weeks after the letter, I was at the hardware store helping a young woman pick out supplies for a bookshelf. She mentioned it was her first apartment, that her dad had offered to build it for her, but she wanted to do it herself. Then she said, "But he's coming over tomorrow to help me finish it." He says doing it yourself doesn't mean doing it alone. I smiled and helped her find the right wood stain, and after she left, I stood in the aisle feeling the weight of that phrase. Doing it yourself doesn't mean doing it alone. That night, my phone rang again. Emily's number. It was exactly midnight. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. The phone kept ringing, and I realized something. I was afraid. The phone stopped ringing, went to voicemail. A minute later, the notification appeared. She'd left a message. I didn't listen to the voicemail that night. I couldn't. Instead, I left my phone in the kitchen and went to bed, though sleep felt impossible. I lay in the dark, constructing entire conversations in my head. Maybe she was calling to apologize. Maybe she was calling to demand again. Maybe she was in real danger, and I was being stubborn while she suffered. Around 4 in the morning, I got up, splashed cold water on my face, and stood in my bathroom looking at myself in the mirror. 71 years old, gray hair thinning, lines carved deep around my eyes. When did I get so old? Morning came with that gray light that makes everything look washed out. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my phone in front of me. The voicemail notification glowed there, insistent. I picked up the phone 3 times before finally pressing play. Emily's voice filled my kitchen, and it wasn't what I expected. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She sounded flat, exhausted. "Dad, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I just wanted you to know I figured it out. I'm not getting evicted. I found a way. You don't need to worry." A long pause. "I guess I also wanted to say that I've been thinking about what you said about close people, and you're right. I wasn't fair to you about graduation. I was embarrassed because Marcus said you didn't fit with my new life, and I listened to him instead of standing up for you. That was wrong, but I still think you were cruel to use that against me when I needed help, so I guess we both hurt each other. Anyway, I'm okay. Bye." The message ended, and I sat there staring at my coffee. It was an apology, sort of. But it was also another accusation. She still didn't fully see it. And that detail about Marcus, about him saying I didn't fit with her new life, that burned. My daughter had chosen a boyfriend's opinion over her father's presence. I wanted to call her back immediately, to ask what she meant by "found a way." How had she come up with $8,200 in 3 weeks? But I didn't call. I saved the message and got ready for work. Frank noticed something was off when I came in. He pulled me aside and asked directly, "What's going on?" So I told him. The graduation exclusion, the money request, the boundary I'd set. Frank listened, and when I finished, he said, "My daughter didn't talk to me for 2 years once. Did I ever tell you that?" I shook my head. Frank nodded slowly. She was 28, got involved with this group, sort of a wellness cult, and they convinced her that her family was toxic. She cut us all off. My wife nearly lost her mind. I asked what happened. Frank's expression was sad, but accepting. She finally left the group, called us crying. We let her come home, helped her. But our relationship never went back to what it was. There's a crack now. We're okay, we talk. But that trust, that closeness we had before, it's just gone. He put his hand on my shoulder. What I'm saying is, whatever happens with Emily, it might not go back to how it was, and you need to make peace with that now. His words settled into me like stones in deep water. Maybe I had been chasing a ghost. The little girl who'd needed me, who'd thought I hung the moon. That Emily was gone. The woman who existed now was someone different. And maybe the relationship we had now, distant and painful, maybe that was the real one. I couldn't keep measuring our present against our past. That evening, I came home to find another envelope under my door. The handwriting was different, masculine, unfamiliar. I opened it standing right there. Inside was a typed message. Mr. Harrison, Emily asked me to thank you for teaching her such an important lesson about conditional love. She's learned that family is about more than blood. It's about who actually shows up. In case you're curious, I helped her with her financial situation. Unlike you, I understand that people make mistakes and deserve support anyway. You should be ashamed of yourself. Marcus Chen. I read it twice, trying to process the audacity. Marcus, the boyfriend who'd abandoned her, was now lecturing me about showing up? The rage that went through me was white hot. I wanted to crumple the letter, track this man down. But underneath the rage was something worse. The realization that Emily had told him her version of the story, and in her version, I was the villain. She'd painted me as the cold father who abandoned his daughter, and Marcus had believed it because it made him look better. I sat down and forced myself to breathe slowly. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out. After a few minutes, the rage cooled enough for me to think clearly. This letter was a manipulation tactic. Marcus wanted me to react, to call Emily angry. So instead, I took the letter, folded it carefully, and put it in the drawer with my unsent letter. Evidence. Then, I made myself dinner. If you're still with me, you won't believe what happens next. Drop a comment below with your country so I know you're here. 3 days later, Margaret called again. Her voice was tight. William, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to do anything stupid. My stomach clenched. What is it? Margaret sighed. I've been doing some digging. After Emily called me, I got curious about this Marcus person. I have a friend whose daughter works in background checks, and I asked her to do me a favor. William, this man has a history. He's done this before. Convinced young women to co-sign leases or loans, then disappeared and left them holding the debt. My friend found 3 separate cases in the last 5 years. He's a con artist, and Emily is just his latest mark. The kitchen tilted around me. Does Emily know? Margaret's voice was gentle. I tried to call her. She wouldn't answer. I left a message telling her we need to talk urgently, but she hasn't called back. I think he's isolated her, convinced her that we're all against her. I asked Margaret to send me everything she had. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as the afternoon light faded. My daughter wasn't just being influenced by a bad boyfriend. She was being actively victimized by someone who'd made a career of exploiting vulnerable women. And she wouldn't even take my calls to warn her. The helplessness was suffocating. How do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? That night, I got out the box of Sarah's things again. This time I looked for a specific item, a letter she'd written me during her last week of life. I'd only read it once, at her funeral. But now, I needed her wisdom. I found the envelope, my name in her shakier handwriting. Inside, pages of her thoughts. I skipped to the part about Emily. Take care of our girl, but don't let her become spoiled by grief. She'll try to use losing me as a reason to get away with things, and you'll want to let her because you feel guilty. Don't. Teach her that love includes accountability. Teach her that the people who care about her will sometimes say no, and that's not cruelty. That's respect. You're stronger than you think. Sarah had known. Even dying, she'd seen what might happen, and I'd ignored it, done exactly what she'd feared. But Sarah had also said I was stronger than I thought. The next morning, I wrote an email to Emily. Not defensive, not angry, just factual. Emily, I know you're not taking my calls. I understand you're upset with me, but I need you to know that I've learned some concerning information about Marcus. He has a history of financial exploitation. Please, be careful. Please protect yourself. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to make sure you have all the information. Whatever is happening between us, I still love you, and I don't want to see you hurt. If you need help, real help, I'm here. Dad. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. No response came. Not that day. Not the next. Just silence, expanding and absolute. 2 weeks passed in a strange, suspended state where I moved through my days like I was underwater. Margaret called every few days. Emily still wasn't returning her calls either. Frank stopped asking how I was doing and started just sitting with me during lunch breaks, his presence a quiet solidarity. Then, on a Tuesday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, professional. "Is this William Harrison?" I confirmed it was. "Mr. Harrison, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the Metro Police Department. I'm calling about your daughter, Emily Harrison. She's not in any trouble, but her name came up in an investigation we're conducting, and I was hoping you might be able to answer some questions." My heart stopped, restarted, hammered against my ribs. Investigation. Police. Emily. I said yes, I'd help however I could, and Detective Chen asked if I could come to the station that afternoon. I said I'd be there in an hour. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Detective Chen met me in the lobby, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes. She led me to a small interview room and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Harrison, what I'm about to tell you is part of an ongoing investigation, so I need you to keep this confidential. Can you do that?" I nodded. She opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. Marcus Chen. "Do you know this man?" I told her yes, that he was Emily's boyfriend. Detective Chen's expression tightened. "When was the last time you had contact with your daughter?" I explained the timeline. The graduation exclusion, the money request, the letters, the email warning that had gone unanswered. Detective Chen listened, taking notes. Then she said, "Mr. Harrison, Marcus Chen is currently under investigation for fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. We've identified at least 7 victims over the past 6 years, all young women in their 20s, all following the same pattern. We've been building a case for 8 months. 7 victims. Emily was number 8. I asked if Emily was cooperating. Detective Chen's face told me the answer. "We haven't been able to make contact with her. She's not returning our calls either." I felt something crack open inside my chest. "Is she in danger?" Detective Chen chose her words carefully. "We don't have evidence of physical violence in his previous cases, but we're very concerned about your daughter's safety, financially and emotionally. We need to find her, and we need her to understand what's happening." I asked what I could do. Detective Chen slid a card across the table. "If she contacts you, please convince her to call me. Don't tell her about the investigation details, just that police need to speak with her about Marcus." I took the card, my fingers numb. "Detective, I've been trying to reach my daughter for weeks. She won't talk to me. She thinks I abandoned her." Detective Chen's expression softened. "Mr. Harrison, for what it's worth, you probably saved her from something much worse. If you'd given her that money, it would have gone straight to Marcus, and she'd be even deeper in his web. By refusing, you may have actually protected her." Her words should have been comforting, but they just made me feel more helpless. I left the police station and sat in my truck for 20 minutes, just breathing. My daughter was entangled with a criminal. The police were investigating him. She wouldn't talk to anyone who might help her. I thought about driving to her apartment right then, but Detective Chen had been clear. If Emily felt cornered, she'd retreat further. I had to be smarter than my panic. I drove home in a daze, and when I got there, Margaret had left 3 voicemails. I called her back and told her everything. Margaret was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "I'm coming to visit. I'll fly in this weekend. We'll figure this out together." I started to protest, but she cut me off. "William, you've been handling everything alone for too long. Let someone help you. I'm coming." That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove to Emily's apartment building. Not to knock, just to see if she was there, if she was okay. I parked across the street and watched the lit windows. Third floor, corner apartment. The lights were on. I saw movement behind the curtains. I sat there for an hour, hating myself for it. But I also couldn't leave. Finally, around 10 o'clock, the apartment door opened and Emily came out. My breath caught. She looked different. Thinner, her hair pulled back severely, wearing expensive clothes I didn't recognize. Where had those come from? She walked to a car, a black sedan that wasn't hers. As she got closer, I saw her face in the streetlight. She looked tired, older. There were shadows under her eyes. She got in the passenger seat, and a moment later, Marcus came out. Seeing him in person made my jaw clench. He was tall, well-dressed, confident in a way that read as arrogant. He slid into the driver's seat, leaned over, and kissed Emily in a way that felt performative. Then they drove off, and I sat there feeling sick. That was my daughter, getting into a car with a man who was using her, who had a pattern of destroying women, who was under criminal investigation, and she had no idea. I drove home and couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I wrote another email. Emily, I saw you tonight. I know that sounds creepy. I'm sorry. I was just worried. You don't look okay. Please, sweetheart, whatever is happening, please just talk to me. The police need to speak with you about Marcus. It's important. Please call Detective Sarah Chen. I included her number, hit send, and immediately regretted it. Morning came too fast. Margaret called to confirm her flight details. She'd be arriving Friday evening. I cleaned my apartment obsessively. Around noon, my phone rang. Detective Chen. Mr. Harrison, I wanted to give you an update. We executed a search warrant on Marcus Chen's apartment this morning. He wasn't there, but we found documentation linking him to several financial crimes. We also found something concerning, a list of names and what appears to be blackmail material for each one. Your daughter's name is on that list. The floor dropped out from under me. What kind of material? Detective Chen's voice was gentle but firm. I can't give you specifics yet, but it appears he's been collecting private information and intimate photos as insurance. If the women try to leave, he threatens to release the material. Mr. Harrison, it's imperative that we locate your daughter before he realizes we're closing in. After we hung up, I sat on my couch and let myself cry for the first time since this whole nightmare started. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere ancient in my chest. I cried for Emily, for the danger she was in. I cried for Sarah, for not being here to help. I cried for myself, for the loneliness and helplessness. I cried until I was just empty and exhausted. How does a family break so completely that a daughter would rather trust a criminal than her own father? Friday evening, I picked Margaret up from the airport. She came through arrivals, looking older than I remembered, her face lined with concern. We hugged, and she held on longer than usual. She didn't say anything during the drive back. When we got inside, she set her bag down, surveyed my living room with its outdated furniture and walls full of Emily's photos, and said quietly, "You've kept everything exactly the same." It wasn't a question. I nodded. She touched one of the picture frames. Maybe that's part of the problem. You've been trying to preserve something that doesn't exist anymore. We stayed up late talking. I told her everything. The details about the blackmail list. How I'd sat outside Emily's apartment. How helpless I felt. Margaret listened with patience. When I finally ran out of words, she made us both tea and sat across from me. Here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, we're going to Emily's apartment together. Not to ambush her, but to leave her a letter, handwritten from both of us. Short and clear. No guilt, no accusations. Just facts and an invitation. I started to protest, but Margaret held up her hand. Maybe she won't read it, but we're going to do it anyway, because we need to know we tried everything. She pulled out a notebook and clicked open a pen. Now, let's write this together. We spent the next hour crafting the letter. It was harder than I expected. Margaret kept reeling me back. This isn't about you being right. This is about her being safe. The final version was simple. Emily, we love you. We're worried about you. The police need to speak with you about Marcus, not to cause trouble, but because they have information that affects your safety. Whatever is happening between us, none of that matters right now. Your safety matters. Please call Detective Chen. Her number is below. You don't have to talk to us if you don't want to, but please talk to someone who can help. You deserve protection. You deserve truth. Love, Dad and Aunt Margaret. We both signed it. Saturday morning, we drove to Emily's apartment. Margaret insisted on coming up with me. We didn't knock. Margaret slipped the letter under the door, and we walked away. In the truck, I felt simultaneously relieved and disappointed. On the drive home, my phone rang. Detective Chen, on speaker. Mr. Harrison, we have a development. Marcus Chen was spotted trying to board a flight to Singapore this morning. Airport security detained him based on our warrant. He's in custody now. I wanted you to know, because it means your daughter is likely alone, and possibly very confused about why her boyfriend suddenly disappeared. My hands tightened on the wheel. Should I go to her? Detective Chen hesitated. That's your call, but she's probably going to be getting calls from Marcus or his lawyer soon. It would be good if someone she trusts could get to her first. Margaret looked at me and nodded. I turned the truck around. This time, I parked in the lot. This time, I walked up to her door with my sister beside me. This time, I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder. Emily, it's Dad. I know you're probably angry, but I really need to talk to you. It's important. Silence. Then faintly, go away. I leaned my forehead against the door. Emily, Marcus was arrested this morning. The police arrested him at the airport. He's in custody. A longer silence. Then the sound of locks turning. The door opened a crack, the chain still engaged, and Emily's face appeared. She looked wrecked. Eyes red and swollen, mascara smeared. She'd been crying for hours. You're lying, she said, but her voice was uncertain. Margaret stepped forward gently. Sweetheart, it's true. We just got the call from the detective. Marcus is in police custody. They've been investigating him for fraud. Emily's eyes moved between us, searching for deception. That doesn't make sense. He was just here this morning. He said he had a business trip. I kept my voice steady. He wasn't going on a business trip. He was trying to leave the country. The police stopped him at the airport. Something shifted in her expression. Some crack in the wall. Why? What do they think he did? I kept it simple. I don't know all the details, but Detective Sarah Chen can explain everything. She's been trying to reach you. Will you talk to her? Please? Emily stared at me for a long moment. Finally, she said, I need to make a phone call first. Alone. She closed the door, and Margaret and I stood in the hallway waiting. 10 minutes passed. 15. I was starting to think she'd slipped out when the door opened again. This time fully. Emily stood there in sweatpants, her arms wrapped around herself. He's not answering his phone. I called 6 times, and it goes straight to voicemail. Because he's in custody. I thought, but didn't say. Will you talk to the detective now? Emily looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months, and I saw fear in her eyes. Real, deep fear. She nodded. I pulled out Detective Chen's card and handed it to her. She took it with shaking hands and went back inside, leaving the door open this time. An invitation. Margaret and I followed her in. The apartment was nice, nicer than I expected. Expensive furniture, artwork on the walls, all of it probably bought with money she didn't have. Emily sat on the couch and dialed, putting it on speaker. Detective Chen answered on the second ring. Miss Harrison, thank you for calling. I know this is difficult, but I need to talk to you about Marcus Chen and some activities we believe he's been involved in. Are you somewhere private where we can speak openly? Emily glanced at me and Margaret. My dad and aunt are here. Detective Chen said that was fine, that family support was important, and then she began explaining, carefully and clearly, exactly who Marcus Chen was and what he'd done. I watched my daughter's face as she listened. Watched the denial, the confusion, the slow dawning horror as Detective Chen laid out the pattern. The other women, the fraudulent leases, the identity theft, The manipulation tactics, the blackmail material. Emily's face went from flushed to pale, and halfway through she started shaking. When Detective Chen mentioned the blackmail list, Emily made a small sound like she'd been hit.
What kind of material?
She asked, barely above a whisper. Detective Chen was gentle but honest. We found intimate photos and private information for each woman on the list. We believe he collected these as insurance. Miss Harrison, did Marcus have access to private photos or sensitive information about you? Emily's hand went to her mouth. She nodded, then realized Detective Chen couldn't see her. Yes, she whispered. Margaret moved to sit beside Emily, putting an arm around her shoulders. Emily didn't pull away. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as Detective Chen continued. Miss Harrison, those materials are now evidence in a criminal case. We have them secured and they won't be released publicly. But I need you to come to the station and make a formal statement. Can you do that? Emily looked at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't quite read. Shame? Fear? Will you come with me, Dad? She asked, and her voice was the voice of a child, again, small and scared. Every wall I'd built to protect myself crumbled instantly. Of course, I said. Of course I will. We went to the police station that afternoon, all three of us. Emily sat between me and Margaret while Detective Chen took her statement. It took 2 hours, and I had to leave the room twice because hearing what Marcus had done to her made me so angry I couldn't sit still. But I came back both times, and both times Emily looked relieved to see me return. When it was over, Detective Chen thanked Emily and explained what would happen next. There would be a trial. Emily might have to testify. The process would be long. But she wouldn't be alone. In the parking lot afterward, Emily turned to me and said, I'm sorry, Dad, for all of it. For the graduation, for what I said, for not listening to you. You were right, and I was too proud to admit it. I pulled her into a hug, and she collapsed into it, sobbing against my shoulder like she used to when she was little. Margaret joined the hug, the three of us standing there while the sun set. I'm sorry too, I said into Emily's hair. I should have found a way to reach you sooner. Emily pulled back, wiping her eyes. No, Dad, you set a boundary, and I punished you for it because it made me feel bad about myself. That's not your fault. That's mine. We stood there for a moment, and then Emily asked, What happens now? To us, I mean? I took a breath. That's up to you. But I'd like to try to rebuild what we had. If you're willing. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but I'm willing to try if you are. Emily nodded. I'd like that. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Margaret suggested we all go get dinner, something normal. We found a small Italian restaurant, sat in a booth, and for the first time in months, we talked. Really talked. Emily told us about graduate school, about her friends, about her plans. She apologized again. Explained that Marcus had convinced her I was too old-fashioned, that I'd embarrass her. Hearing it out loud made her realize how cruel it sounded. I told her about the hardware store, about Frank, about the letters I'd written but never sent. We didn't solve everything over pasta, but we started. We began knitting back together what had been torn apart. When I dropped Emily back at her apartment that night, she hesitated before getting out. Dad, can I ask you something? I nodded. Why did you say no when I asked for the money? Really? I thought about how to answer, wanting to be honest, but kind. It was both. The graduation hurt, yes, but it also showed me a pattern I'd been ignoring. I'd taught you that my love meant always saying yes, always fixing things, and that wasn't healthy for either of us. I said no because I needed to respect myself, and because I hoped that maybe, if I set a boundary, you'd learn that real love includes accountability. Emily was quiet, absorbing that. Then she said, Thank you for respecting yourself, even though it hurt, maybe especially because it hurt. She got out of the truck, and Margaret moved to the front seat. We watched Emily go inside, saw the lights come on. She's going to be okay, Margaret said. It'll take time, but she's going to be okay. I hoped she was right. I hoped that this was the beginning of healing. But for now, for tonight, my daughter was safe. She was talking to me again. She was starting to see the truth. It wasn't everything, but it was something. As I drove Margaret back to my apartment, I thought about Sarah, about what she'd written in that letter about love, including accountability. I hoped she could see this somehow, could know that I'd finally learned the lesson she'd tried to teach me. That saying no sometimes meant loving better. That boundaries weren't walls, they were foundations. What happens when you love someone enough to let them be angry with you? Sometimes, if you're very lucky, they eventually understand why. And sometimes, that understanding is the beginning of something real. I'm reading and replying to every comment under this post. Let me know what you think happened next, and if you believe I made the right choice. And if this story moved you, please subscribe. Your support means everything.